Order the Hampstead Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. May I have a roll call, please?
Sharon Callahan.
Here.
Lou Conier.
Here.
Charlie Obermeyer.
Here.
Deborah Painter.
Here.
Barb Yeager.
Here.
The meeting is called to order, and may you be advised that the members of the Hampstead Town Council may be present and in attendance at the meeting. All persons are reminded that this session is being recorded on tape as required by law for the preservation of records, and are asked when providing comment to give their name and address. All persons in attendance are requested to print their name, address, and affiliation on the sign-in sheet as you come in the door. First on the agenda will be minutes approval from the meeting of July 26, 2023, the regular commission meeting. May I have a motion to approve, please?
I make a motion to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any comment or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So approved. Zoning administrator update, please.
All right. It's August, and this will be a short one. Pretty much all our plans are still going through Carroll County review. Hans has resubmitted their plan to the county, once again, to address comments that they had received. Melanie Acres, which their site plan you guys gave the approval for last month, we have reviewed the maintenance agreement in-house in reference to the stormwater management facilities and the use in common drive. We made a couple suggestions, and that's back in the attorney's hands to address those. As soon as that gets ironed out, then we begin the public works agreement, which basically describes the work that needs to be done and the costs involved, and then they will have to issue a letter of credit that we will hold on to until the project is done, just to ensure that the project does get done correctly. We recently received a sign application, or a bunch of sign permit applications for Wendy's Restaurant. They're getting ready to redo their building along the lines of what Dunkin' did last year with the signage. Basically, it's almost in kind for kind, except they're updating, going with their new logo, stuff like that. They'll be on the agenda for next month here, coming to you guys. One thing I did notice when I was going through the applications is they were looking to install a new pylon sign, one of the tall signs, similar to the one they have down there, but it's a brand new one. So I reached out to them and said, hey, you know, in our town code, it's something that we prefer is a monument sign. So I found a couple examples of monument signs for Wendy's online, sent them a couple pictures, and said, any chance that you guys would consider putting in a monument sign instead of the pylon sign? So we'll see if that leads to them making a change on that.
Is there anything that says that if they replace the sign that they?
No.
Okay, so they could put the exact same thing
They
up
could.
again?
It's just basically under Main Street signage. It's just these are the things that the town prefers within the Main Street revitalization area. So that's about it. But they will be here in September. Everything else looked pretty cut and dry. But see what they come up with as far as the main sign. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Next on the agenda, discussion of mixed-use housing in the local business district.
And you know what? I really boo-booed. We're supposed to have a public hearing first, and I didn't even print that agenda.
Okay, so
Yep.
we're going to put this off?
We can go ahead and we can have the public hearing. It was scheduled. So basically, we can hold the public hearing for the discussion of the growth plan amendment for the Hampstead Community Comprehensive Plan. It was advertised as being tonight. Does anyone here have any public comment?
Oh, so I'm assuming this is in reference to, like, we received official letters from Carroll County.
Correct.
Andrew also sent his comment that's in relation to that.
That's
the
a
topic.
relationship to that. That's the topic, yes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it seems just from reading certainly the county's official review of it was that by annexing, you know, that part of the industrial and removing residential, that we might be afoul of, certain housing visions that are called out in the Carroll County, vision document. And so, again, I'm not really equipped to comment on that, but it seemed like they had a pretty strong position on that. Andrew, I think yours was similar, right? So if that's what we want to talk about, I mean, what's the recourse there?
So let's talk about Carroll County's Department of Planning, their comments first. So Andrew, you can chime in at any time. So Andrew's comments were in reference, a lot of it, to what will happen as far as the annexation plan down the road. And to the end, to address Andrew's comments, you have an amendment in front of you, the Appendix D, which we made these changes since it went out in email on Friday. So one thing that Andrew suggested we put in there is about the impact that it would have on on the facilities in town. So on the first page, you will see that we added in green, if the parcel to be annexed into the town, there will be no additional impact on police, fire, emergency services. Additionally, there would be no impact on schools, recreational facilities, or solid waste material, and also there will be no cost associated with water or sewer infrastructure incurred by the town or county in regards to this annexation. You want to?
Sure. Thank you, Jim. And the reason why I had those comments are because when you review state law, it mentions that the annexation plan shall substantially conform to the master plan. And looking back at that, and since this is an update of the master plan or an amendment to the master plan, just having that parcel, when later on, as Jim mentioned, when you're reviewing the annexation plan, to have that language in the comp plan, so when you go back to review the annexation plan based on the comp plan, that language is in the comp plan, so the annexation plan will substantially conform to the comp plan. So Jim showed that information to me, and everything looks good to go.
So again, so you basically made these amendments based off of the comments that Andrew gave in the letter that's here?
Correct.
And so, Andrew,
Correct.
you've now reviewed what Jim put in there, and everything's copacetic?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then some other comments that Andrew had was basically just clarifying land use and zoning. And so on page 3, we made some additions down the bottom in the bullet items in reference to the zoning and land use for these 3 properties. The one being the area that's been was put into the growth area in 2017, known as the Beckleysville Ventures property. We simply added the part that the town land is proposed to have a town land use and subsequent zoning of R10,000 along with the conservation area. And then on the second bullet point, we basically just spelled out what the current land use is with Carroll County for the Stag/Penguin Random House property, and then also what the town proposes to keep the same land use and zoning. And then also with the area down south, the Trenton Mill Offner property, basically just spelling out the land use and zoning. So that was to address the county's comments and Andrew's comments.
Well, so again, that reconciles what Andrew had written, and then the mechanics of what the county's comments were are reconciled. But
Right.
I think the main point that the county was making, I thought, was about the
Correct.
reduction of affordable housing, the property for affordable housing development, et cetera,
Right.
and an increase in industrial property, and how do we reconcile that?
Right. And so there's 2 things. Well, first off, I sent an email to Brooks Phelps, who's our regional director of Maryland Department of Planning. I sent him this afternoon, hoping that me and Andrew can sit down with his team and go over this. Their comments basically address the 12 visions and they basically addressed the entire comprehensive plan. And a lot of it did center on the housing aspect, and there are two fairly new pieces of legislation that was passed that now need to be addressed in a comprehensive plan or comprehensive plan update. They are affordable housing, and they are affirmatively furthering fair housing. That was just passed, just went into effect. So we're in the process of doing the entire comp plan. I want to, hopefully sit down with them and explain to them that that's where we are with the comp plan, and it will be addressed. Hopefully in the near future when we get it done, and hopefully that will satisfy them. The other thing that you may have noticed in there is they were asking for a tier map update. So I include that. That's in your packet also. This is a growth tier map that was done in 2012 by Carroll County, and it was done for each municipality. And basically, it puts tiers to sewer service and priority funding areas in municipalities, things like that. So we need to go in and just update this also. I think those are the two main points. A lot of what is in the comments from MDP are suggestions. Nothing that really is set in stone that we need to do, but I want to talk with them and, have them discuss it, more in depth. So
Does that mean then, from a public hearing perspective, any sort of, because we're not making a motion?
We're
I
not
don't
making
think,
any
on this.
motion tonight or
Right,
anything
we're just
tonight.
discussing it.
Just
right.
discussing it.
Yeah, so it sounds like
And-
the path forward that you've got seems the wise one, right? So you've gotten some pretty comprehensive comments from county. You're gonna have a discussion with them. Attempt to reconcile as best we can.
Right.
And then we can then,
Correct.
some future date, talk about how those amendments reconcile with what they said and whether we move forward.
Right, that's exactly what I'm hoping that we can do something, when we have this discussion, and say, we've made these amendments based on Carroll County's comments. We can do the same for the state, but I need to know how in-depth you need them to be now versus how much can wait until we give you the entire comprehensive
Right.
plan update. So that's where we stand with it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, one more thing, Jim, just as far as the comprehensive plan, right? So I mean, since I've joined the Planning and Zoning Commission, those are the units that we've been reviewing over time as we update them
Correct.
with an eye towards having the comprehensive plan being completed
Right.
and approved, right? So you're taking those suggestions and rolling them into that plan.
Yes. A
Okay.
lot of what they talk about is already addressed. I had the housing chapter about ready to go. Andrew had seen it. It was ready to come to you guys for a review, and then I was informed of this, what is now known as AFFH, which is affirmatively furthering fair housing, and we must now address it in the housing element of the comprehensive plan.
So, but the version that they're looking at is not the one that they have is.
Correct. And they're looking
Right.
at basically comparing it to the 2010 comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I understand their point of view, because in 2010, it was an entirely different viewpoint in Hampstead, because at that point, there was severe water issues, and they were shrinking the growth area. But then in 2017, those problems were addressed. We had adequate water, and in 2017, we grew the growth area again, and we added some more residential units, one of which is one that we're looking to take out down south. And Andrew had a very good point in that, so in 2017, when we added that little residential area, we never really addressed the impact that it would have on the housing, section in the comp plan. So now with us removing that section back out, basically it's bringing the comp plan back more in line with the 2010 comprehensive plan. Yeah, confusing stuff.
No. I think too, though, I mean, from how do you reconcile when you have a major revision that's underway
Right.
against the 2010 plan?
Oh, it's hard.
And
Yeah.
that's so you're basically trying to fix, it as it's moving, and still reconcile with what the county has given you. And Andrew, I think, understands those nuances, but they don't have any visibility into that at all.
Right, exactly, yeah. Andrew's local, Andrew understands,
Right.
What's going on in Hampstead, where the state doesn't have that up-close view.
Yeah.
So, that's where we
But
stand.
would it be, would they accept that, showing a draft?
I have no idea, that's why we,
Right, yeah.
you know,
Because it's not officially in, right? You could say,
Correct.
yeah, we plan to do it, but if they don't see it officially in, then
Right.
they have to go with what they see,
yeah.
is what it sounds like.
Or I would hope that they would allow us to pass this amendment through, which really has a very small impact on housing. And basically, all it's doing is adjusting the municipal growth area without having to see the entire comprehensive plan, because very little of what's in this amendment deals with those other areas. So that's where we be.
Okay, any other discussion, comments? So, we can move on.
If we close the public hearing.
The public hearing shall be closed and with no further comment. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right?
It closed. Thank you. Okay, now next, discussion of mixed-use housing in the local business district.
Okay. Seems like I'm gonna do a lot of talking tonight. So, mixed-use zoning, it's something that, we have a lot of mixed uses, properties in town that basically are known now as non-conforming uses because they were in place before the last zoning changes. And so we have a lot of mixes of residential and commercial in the local business district. We also, on another side of it, we have been getting some feelers put in from developers looking at possibly doing some projects around town, which would be a new build mixed use. And so it's something I've talked to some members of the council. I put it in the staff report last week and explained to them that we were going to be looking into this. I think it's something that would be helpful to the town, not only in bringing the non-conforming uses then into conformity, but also maybe allowing for additional properties to do mixed use. The benefits of mixed use, and I put together this package trying to explain it and show some different examples of things. It really makes towns more walkable, and you bring the residential side down into your downtown district. And I think that that would be a win for Hampstead. And as far as the non-conforming uses, so we have pictures in there of some of the non-conforming properties in town. The flip side of that is, so we have another business down there that right now does not have any apartments above it. Because it's not addressed now in code, they could not add any apartments above it. So if we add this in mixed-use
Which
zoning,
one is that?
it's not pictured here. But you could say,
I'm sorry, did you say there is one now? that-
oh, there are several down there that don't have any apartments above it. I'm trying to think who off the top of my head, but I know there are some down there.
Because the first thing that's popping into my head is there's a difference between existing buildings that are kind of the character of Hampstead and then when you're building a new building. Because these are all renderings, right? These aren't actual buildings.
No, those are just different examples of
Right.
mixed-use buildings that have been put up in other
These,
towns.
that's not a render?
Excuse me?
That's,
The first two,
I
I guess
realize
the
that,
first
yeah.
one may be a photograph, the other two are just renderings.
okay.
If I could say, I for one, after living here since the early 70s, God, I hate to say that, but walking the streets of Hampstead for all these years and knowing we had mixed use and understanding non-conforming use. I ran a business for many years in Baltimore County that was in a neighborhood that was supposed to be all residential, but we had non-conforming use zoning. And as long as we didn't change the building, the original building, we could stay there. We could add on to things, but we could stay. But it created a lot of issues and trouble for a small business. So looking at this and these examples of existing non-conforming use, if we can make adjustments to bring all of these together, it certainly is going to improve everybody's livelihood, the business owners as well, and then the apartment possibilities, giving more people a place to live,
Right.
and making the town of Hampstead more accessible to people and working together as opposed to making everything a big production.
Right.
So I think this is a long time coming, and that's just my
I
opinion.
agree with you 100%. I'm just questioning the new. There's a
Right.
big difference between bringing those into conformance, and when I look at something like this, I'm trying to picture where within the Main Street
Right.
corridor.
Well,
you can
that
put
would look like a drawing to me.
I
Yeah,
realize that
I was
most
just
people
trying to
is,
find
yeah.
different examples from different areas.
But where the Allstate is, that's a great example right there.
Right.
Because there are apartments up there. And then the other two buildings where Bob's Variety used to be, and these other businesses are
Right.
now there. And there's more apartments or living space above them.
1216, that's one. That's where a small town boutique is.
Yes.
And
uh-huh.
they've put businesses in up above, but there's room for residential, but they can't do it. I know Manor of Time also at one point was maybe looking into doing some apartment or two in the rear upstairs, and they can't do it. So those are some of the existing properties that cannot do it.
Completely on board with that. Just don't want to jump into can build something new. And I realize there's all kinds of things in place too.
Yeah, and that's
Kind
the
of
other
guide
thing.
that process too. but-
Right, if someone did come in and say, hey, I'm looking to do, well, we put the guidelines in, if you see later on, basically what would be as of right now, the suggested draft amendment to the local business district. When you go to item W, we put in the guidelines where it cannot exceed over 10,000 square feet, and the maximum height cannot exceed 50 feet. That maximum height is the standard for the business local district. That's basically already in there. And then we also put in the part about residential portion of the property shall not exceed 60% of the gross square footage. And I was discussing this with Michelle, going back how exactly to word this. We decided to make that 60% instead of 50%, where all the bottom would be commercial retail and above would all be residential. By bumping it to 60%, that allows for the opportunity to have commercial on the bottom that could be ADA accessible. So I think that's a good thing too.
The other question I have about ADA accessible is, I understand about the business part being ADA accessible, but if you have these older buildings, how does that impact the residents that may be above?
Right.
Because they're, in these older buildings, they're not ADA accessible.
Correct. And I think because it's residential, it's not held to the same standards as business when it comes to ADA. Because I know when they had the fire at Linens and Lace, of course, there was apartments upstairs,
Yes.
and of course, they're stairs, they're not ADA accessible. And when they had to rebuild, when they went through the whole process, and they were allowed to rebuild the exact same way.
They were, okay.
Yes. So,
So, I'm sorry, Jim, so whenever you were saying that a property like Manor of Time is not allowed to put apartments in there,
right.
I missed what you were saying was the reason why they couldn't do it is because they weren't previously zoned
Right, they're not-
that way,
right.
and now they
Right.
can't claim that zoning.
Correct.
It's like grandfathered in. Okay.
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, basically the ones that are non-conforming, they're basically grandfathered that non-conforming designation because they had that use before the new zoning for that property went into effect.
So any property like Manor of Time who takes over what was previously a residence and makes it into a business now has to then use it as business only?
That building has been a business since before the zoning was changed.
Oh, it was, okay.
Yeah.
It was a hair salon.
It was a hair salon.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right. I was
For a
trying to
long
remember what it
time.
was before, okay. Yeah.
So, and as Barb was pointing out, when you look at some of those renderings, I understand that they look large and foreboding, but that's why we put in the 10,000 square foot, basically footprint. And I gave you guys a couple examples of buildings around town so you can give an idea of what 10,000 square feet on one level is. Also, within business local district, of course, you then on top of that, the regulations and conditions within that, you also have the regulations and conditions within the Main Street revitalization area. So, once again, whenever someone if they decided they wanted to do this
There's a whole bunch of things in place.
in place.
It's just kind of opening a new
Correct.
little box. And
Yes.
going to a place that hasn't been visited
Exactly.
before, so
Yeah.
step carefully along the way. Make sure.
Pretty much, yes. Yes, and then the other thing in here that you'll see near the end is parking. We thought that it better be just spelled out in cases where there is a mixed-use property. The required number of parking spaces for each use must be met. So if you had 5,000 feet of retail, you would have to provide, freestanding retail is 4 spaces, so you'd have to have 4 times 5, so you have to have 20 spaces for that. And then residential, we're actually looking to change that one based on when we did the talk about the parking at the mill. So we're going to lower that to 2 for family dwellings. So then if they had 5 apartments upstairs, they'd have to do an additional 10. So that building would be required to have at least 30 parking spots. The 20 for the retail plus the 10 for the residential.
Do they, the building, the mill, do they intend to make that entire thing? I don't recall.
Yes.
Apartments, so there'll be no commercial at the.
There'll be no commercial. We had actually expressed to them that we thought the little area there on Gill would make for a good little commercial spot, but they were like, no, we'd rather just keep it all residential.
It would have, it's a nice little corner to kind of wrap the town a little bit.
Yep.
That's-
So, the procedure for this is, basically I'll take the changes that, or we'll take the changes that are in the zoning, like the draft, the 2 drafts in the back. We'll wrap them into an ordinance, at which time then the ordinance would be introduced to council. It would then come back to you guys again just to review it one more time. And then it would go back to council. We'd have a public hearing, and then council would either approve or deny, the ordinance.
And so just to understand what's going to be submitted for inclusion in the ordinance, it's going to be only specific to business local, anything in that business local zone.
Correct.
So something like the, North Carroll Pantherplex.
No.
Right?
No.
Because it's too big. It's not even in the
Well, that's
the
the
business,
also,
not even in the right zone to even be
Right.
considered for what we're talking about here.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And it will, since it's in BL, it can be done in residential office, or I'm sorry, residential business, which there's some other houses sprinkled along there, that same deal. They've got a little business down the bottom, but they don't have any residential on top. So,
Well, the places that are non-conformance now, will they need to do any formal process? They'll just automatically get.
yep.
Yeah, I think it sounds good. I mean, again, we were talking in some previous meeting just about the need for housing, affordable housing here. So I guess the more housing, the better. And
We do. I mean, I've been hearing for a long time about how, our younger residents, they can't find affordable, decent apartments to live in. And there are some nice ones along Main Street. You go in some of these upper residences, some of them aren't so hot. So other ones, you're like, wow, they're really nice. And of course, any new build that would be done, I think would be done very tastefully too.
I think the lack of inventory for affordable housing is a huge issue today.
Absolutely.
And the lack of inventory for apartments not everybody can buy.
Right.
And so renting is a big deal right now, and go find something to rent. It is a real challenge. Very, very difficult. This is something that's really very much needed.
Yeah.
It would make a very big difference.
And actually, doing the housing element and going through the numbers from the census, the number of owner-owned properties in Hampstead has fallen off over the last 10 years. There's many more renters now than we've had. So they'll all need someplace to rent.
And purchasing, because of the increase, I hate to bring it up, in interest rates for these first-time home buyers, which are people we may be talking about, or those who maybe aren't in a position to buy to begin with, is making it much more challenging
Right.
than it has in the past. So it is something that's needed. I think one of the things I think a benefit in walking on Main Street and looking at the apartments or the buildings is some of the landlords in the past, the condition of those homes wasn't so good.
Right.
And my hope would be that some of this will help to bring some of those people that continue to not comply to get them into order would be a benefit.
And, we've discussed this many times, the amount of pedestrian traffic on Main Street since we finished the Main Street project has grown exponentially. And I think it's very nice. You see people coming out of the neighborhoods and walking up and getting a coffee on a Saturday morning. And I think that this falls right in line with that mentality of, having a lot of walkability and people, out there on our Main Street.
I agree. It's a very positive thing.
All righty.
Okay, any other discussion, comments? So then, next on our agenda, finalize plans for August 29th walking tour.
Yeah, talking about walkability in Main Street.
Here we go.
So we're going to do it next Tuesday, 5:30. We had discussed meeting at the municipal lot. We'd also discussed breaking into two teams to cover more ground. You want to break into two teams? I thought if so, north end could meet at the municipal lot, south end could meet at, say, Iliano Plaza 2, park there on the side where there's always open spaces like it used to be the side of Ricky's Bistro there.
I guess if we split, we need to make sure we have some sort of guidelines to make sure both groups are looking for the
Yes,
same.
before we go out, I will have some guidelines on things to look at, things to check for, different, hopefully explanations of different kinds of signage you will see out there. And I should have all that together for you by Monday at the absolute latest, Monday morning.
Very good.
So,
How do we decide who's going where? You said split them up.
I'm driving a police car, so.
let's not get into that
I don't-
discussion, I
No,
guess.
no, that's okay.
I'm kidding.
We said walkability, huh?
I have a wagon.
So Andrew, you're going, right? So we have
Excellent.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us.
Okay.
All right, so how do we want to split up?
Two team captains, we pick teams now.
We'll do it this way. Sharon, you're chairman. Would you like to do north or south?
I'd like to do north. Thank you.
Sharon, north.
The old part.
Deb?
I do not have a
I didn't care.
preference.
I like south.
Lewis, south.
I'll take south if nobody wants it.
I think there's more things to be viewed
Orbis
per,
south.
per walking area.
Charlie goes
We got the smokers'
north.
world.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
I'll go wherever you have that extra person. It makes no difference.
Go wherever the wagon is.
I'll go from municipal. I can walk to municipal.
All right, so Deb is north. All right, I'll go south. Andrew,
Yes, sir.
you can surprise us with where you show up.
Actually, Andrew, you have to
Or
do both.
you can go back and forth.
To the best.
Or unless you want to do north, south.
I could do north,
Okay.
because that would be the main downtown part.
Yep.
Now, Jim, is this, it said it's open to the public, or it's on part of the public record. Does that mean that the public is invited to join us?
Public is invited to join us. and walk along, but it's really not an open dialogue. It would be just like we're having a meeting now.
They can come, but they gotta,
Well, they can observe, yes. Yes, correct.
I, for one, am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be interesting to see it from that perspective, as opposed to driving up and down like we do, or
Right.
shopping if we are.
Okay, I'm still hearing from Steve on a regular basis about the comment at one of the meetings about him wearing a GoPro on his walks. He says he wants some sort of payment if you guys are using GoPro film from his activities.
All right, I guess that's decided. We'll
Got
be
it?
all set to go, and I will get documentation out to you guys by Monday.
And we are all splitting from the same starting location, right?
no, we're meeting at those
Or-
locations.
Right, but we're splitting.
We're meeting.
We're meeting in the same parking lot, just
No.
like Group's going north.
No, the south, the people that are doing the south are meeting on the side of Iliano.
You said that,
Pleasanton.
yes, Ricky's got it,
Yeah,
yep.
okay.
Then we have to walk
Okay.
uphill.
But then you come back down with down.
You
My
chose,
4-year-old did a 5-mile hike last weekend with
Oh,
me,
good for her.
so I think we can make it through Hampstead. I'm just saying. I
Speak
think we
for
can do it.
yourself.
On a fairly regular basis, so.
So, Jim, you will be providing guidelines? for
Yes, I
each?
will.
Okay, thank
Maybe I'll
you.
bring my 5-year-old to see if she can keep up with it. She just can't talk, right, to us? Because she'll be part of the public.
Is there any need for?
That's what I was asking, was that, my wife wanted to know if she could
You
come.
can
I'm like,
absolutely take
Sure
notes.
she can.
Yeah, I told her she's gonna have
So we'll
to.
discuss at a later.
Correct. Yep.
All right.
Sounds good.
Was
Thank
there
you.
a
So
rain-
we're all set
rain
for
plan?
the 29th walking tour.
Yes, if it rains, I will let everybody know.
We'll
Okay.
pick a new date.
Yep.
Okay.
sure
Okay.
if it rains, we would all just look out our windows.
Just drive through
See,
town.
it's raining,
Look,
we're not
one of the
walking.
coffee houses,
you
and we'll just
let us
hang out
know.
there.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Carroll County Department of Planning update.
Thank you, Ms. Callahan. Just 2 items from the county. Number 1 is the triennial update to the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan. That is still going through, I shouldn't say still going through, that is going through Maryland Department of Environment. We are expecting to hear something back this fall. Also, the Carroll County Economic Development and Land Use Study. We're working with the consultants, just finalizing some information that they're providing us. When staff has finalized the information for that study, that will go to the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission for review. We will take it back to the County Planning Commission to get their comments. So basically, we introduce it to them. We would let them have some time to digest it and then get their comments. And then after the County Planning and Zoning Commission has provided their comments, it will go to Carroll County Board of County Commissioners. Just to let everyone know, all information for this study, when it becomes available, will be posted on the County Department of Planning's website. If you go onto the County Planning main web page, there's one of the ribbons that I guess there's 4 or 5 things that scroll through. If it's not the first, it's the second. It's a link to the Economic Development and Land Use Study, and you can see a lot of things that have happened to date. For instance, different pictures from our public outreach sessions. So when that draft plan becomes available, that will be posted on the county website so the public can review. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, any public comment, any other business? Then if not, I need a motion, please, to adjourn.
So moved?
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So approved, adjourned. Thank you.
Dude, you see that,
I was waiting for it.
Yep,
It said so adjourned, right? So adjourned.
we're done. How's that?